FC Magic 95 assumes no responsibility for its content, and the Wade and Carter Show bears all responsibilities.
A country music legend passes. The Cleveland Indians are no more. Cowboys win. Texans are stomped. Zodiac message encrypted, and a whole lot more coming up on today's Wade and Carter Show.
It's just delayed.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules. Rule number 1, no touching of the hair or face.
Morning, YouTubers. Hey, good morning.
My brother, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I was hoping that just once I'd get this thing started flawless, and nope, I didn't do it.
Didn't do it, huh?
Didn't do it.
All
Not this go.
All right, let's do this though before we get rolling. Wade and Carter weather brought to you by the fine folks at Deerland Feed for all your ag needs, your pet needs, stocking stuffers. Deerland Feed has everything you need. And it's a cold one this morning. If you need heat lamps for those chicks, they can provide that as well. Going to be chilly tonight, 37 for the low. Right now it's 42. We're only going to get to about 58 for the high today. So don't think we're going to get too warm. The wind seems to have calmed down a little bit. That was pretty bad yesterday.
The sun will be out though, right?
Tomorrow. No, I'm just kidding. Just
Okay.
trying to, so no, I think I think we'll see
Cold
sun.
and sunny.
Cloudy this morning. I think we'll see sun this afternoon. High of 58, low tonight around 37. So it'll be chilly again. I don't think no frost warning or anything like that, but
Hopefully that gloom that just hung around the whole weekend will kind of dissipate a little bit.
yeah, it was kind of. But well, let's see. Let's look at the extended forecast. The Caleb Shaw extended forecast.
Let's hear it.
64 tomorrow, 59 Wednesday, 61 Thursday. We're not warming up till the weekend, and then we get some rain. Figures, right?
Every weekend.
Yep. So
I think I was still trying to swim or something, like the pool was open. That's the way it always happens.
always happens like that. So Caleb Shaw, guest hosting this morning. Really appreciate that. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Thanks for having me. New microphones. They look good.
Glad you're here. Glad you're joining us, and always a willing participant. That's always nice. At least I don't have to coerce you and
Well, I haven't
drag
burned,
you in
I haven't
here.
burned my bridges yet, so
I
I'll take it.
don't expect you to. So
Me either.
it's been a few weeks since last you were in, and a lot has changed since then. We've had an election. Let's start there. Your thoughts on the election? Do you believe there's fraud? Is there well, let's start there. Your thoughts on the election, and do you believe there was fraudulent activity?
First and foremost, I think it's funny that, here we are about a month out and all of that, and we're told to just shut up. And this is the safest election in history. Don't question anything. Don't doubt anything. Sit there and take it. Okay. I think there's a lot of abnormalities. I think there's a lot of things that warrant looking at. But I've always been a proof guy. And until it hits me right in the face, does it feel right? No. Does it seem right? No. Have I seen the Kraken yet? Have I seen anything that just punches me right in the nose and makes me want to go stand out in the street and protect, a victory that I think was robbed? I haven't seen that yet, and I want to. I wish we had seen it. I think it's weird that Trump got the most votes in history and all of these matrices that had to be beaten were, but yet Biden did even better, and so it's like, well, either that's true or it's not, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but I think it's going to be an interesting ride coming up now for the next 4 years. And a lot of people might have just gotten what they voted for.
So suitcases coming out from under tables. Not allowing poll workers to stand within the 6 feet. Putting up newspaper and pizza boxes on the windows so people couldn't peer in. None of that gets your spidey senses tingling and
all of
raises.
it does. Let me be crystal clear. I mean, every single incident almost cuts against the president. Almost every single one. I haven't seen these things where oops, we found out. Well, they did find all those Biden votes that when they needed them the most, but not a single thing has cut the president's way, not a single one. And I kind of felt going in that this was an establishment versus the people, not necessarily Republicans versus Democrats, but you had so many of these Republicans that they went out, that the never Trumpers and all of these that went out and said, here are all of my conservative beliefs. Here's how I feel. Now I'm going to go and vote for the guy that's the exact opposite of all of them because I dislike Trump so much. Well, what weak leadership, and what it just shows me that kind of the system was stacked, and it's kind of like the way I felt during the bond and stuff like that. Like I felt like that was the people versus the establishment. The establishment was saying, we think this is good for you. The people said, nah, we're the ones that got to pay for it, not so much. And I thought we were going to get our butts kicked, and then we won. And I think it was one of those type of things where I don't think Trump had a chance. I think even if Trump would have won, Trump would have lost, because I think most of the Republicans wanted him out just as bad as the Democrats. And while he brings his own set of problems to the office, I don't think he was a part of that DC swamp. And I think they wanted him out. And he
on both sides.
On both sides. And I think, he's the thing with like Biden and his son and all that. I think that's more the norm than the exception. I think that's how all of them go over there making less money than we do a year and all come home multimillionaires. And Trump throws a wrench in that. And I think they needed him gone. That's my humble little opinion on it all.
No, I share many of those same sentiments. CW Bean, first one in this morning. Judge Posey, good morning to you. Justin Glass, Robin Moore Knipling, Richard King, Bobby Leister, Andy Ria Jr. We're backed up to 337 YouTubers. That might change today. I won't tell you why in a little bit here. Andrea Canning, good morning. Jeremy Pena, Christina Wise, Jay Humphreys, Sheriff Louderback, BJ Nelson, Michelle Hawkins, Bob Watley. BJ say here. BJ says the scary part is the lack of participation by FBI, DOJ, CIA. Oh. They are our employees. Do your job. They're only complicit, it seems, if they don't like Trump and they can do anything they can to undermine his presidency and subterfuge any progress that he was making.
Well, I think you had that whole wing of people within the administration and the White House and all of that just from day one, the resist movement and the guy had 4 people in an office, and by the time he went to the restroom afterwards and washed his hands, everything that was said was leaked in the office. Yeah. Everything was out, and it's just we watched for 4 years. I mean, until the day of the election, we were still being told Russia stole the whole thing and all of that, and that Trump was literally stealing mailboxes to make sure that he won. And then the very next day, it was the safest election in history.
Yeah, imagine that.
And I watch all these news anchors every night and just trash. And now they're wanting to punish people. And if you even thought about this, you should never be able to have a spot in government again. And it's like, does anybody just remember Russia? 4 years of this garbage? But they'll look at you and just say, well, that was true, though. This isn't. And so what do you do when you have nowhere to stand and nobody speaks your voice and no media besides Wade and Carter will throw out anything for you? You don't have a lot of outlets.
And the Electoral College will vote later today.
Yeah, and I think that'll be as it's supposed to, and that'll go right through. And
although it's 2020 and I wouldn't be surprised by something happening. It may not be enough to do anything, but it may be ceremonial in nature or you know what I mean? It might not be substantial, but it might be enough for somebody out there might just say, you know what? Nah.
You know what? And if we lost them, we lost. And I'm okay with that. Of course I want to win. I hate losing and all of that, but I just want fairness. If it was fair and we lost, hey, moving on. We should have done a better job. That's it. But does it feel like it was fair? No, it doesn't. And, and I just don't have the proof, and I'm not going to go out there and
I don't have the resources to find it either. That's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of things that, I mean,
can you imagine if, say, hey, Donald Trump had used the government to spy on Hunter, on Biden's team because of the China connection and all this, like they did with him in Russia, and that got all sparked because some drunk guy at a bar said something, whatever, and kicked off the whole deal, and this seems to actually be true, and. But if Trump would have used the same resources that the Obama administration and that group did when he was coming in, the world would be on fire right now.
and I'm not trying to politicize this, but the more I learn and read about the Rodney Reed case, gentleman that's been wrongly convicted and on death row for almost his whole life, it seems. There was more circumstantial evidence used to convict him, or I should say less circumstantial evidence used to convict him than what we're looking and seeing in this election, yet we're being told this election is the safest and more it's ever been.
That's what's scary about district attorneys and stuff is I agree that they should have discretion as far as what cases are brought and what's not, but you can't tell me that so many of these offices aren't politicized across the nation and up to the highest levels. When you had, I forget his name, Eric, whatever, for Obama administration, calling himself Obama's wingman, and Eric Holder, and stuff like that. And, you just see so many.
He was so bad, I forgot about him already.
Yeah. I mean, but can you imagine if, Barr, for good and for bad, I feel he's played things pretty fairly and given the hyper politicized spot he sits in, but like I said, if he would have walked out like Eric Holder did and called himself the wingman of the president and all this, I mean, it would have been absurd, rightfully so.
Well, he didn't have to call himself that because the media was doing it for him.
Yeah. And so I guess just some resemblance of fair, and
that's a good illustration of a lack of fairness, at least in the media.
Mm-hmm.
Barr gets accused of being President Trump's wingman as the attorney general, and lack of fairness. Eric Holder comes out and calls himself the president's wingman, and he's celebrated for it, and there's no cries of lack of fairness.
Yep. Well, it's just like, I think it was Jake Tapper last night ended his CNN show with, he started off and he goes, I actually want to give some credit, paraphrasing, but he wanted to give some credit to the president. And it was, thank you for exposing all of these Republicans that should never be allowed to work again and how awful they are and how bad. And it was just like, no, we're not going to heal because now they feel that they've been given the green light to just further stomp us out. And
we're going on a 4-year expose coming up of everybody who opposed Joe Biden is going to be spotlighted and vilified.
Discussions are done. Yeah. Discussions are done. I think it's going to be seek and destroy. And I think it's going to be, your point is not even worth it. It's so hateful. It's so bad. It's so disgusting that we can't even, we're not even going to discuss it. You just need to be shut up.
And all you have to do is look at what happened over the weekend, the protests in Washington, D.C., where Trump supporters were out peacefully protesting, and there were stabbings that took place, but the headlines are trying to make you believe that the stabbings were done by Trump supporters, and it was absolutely anti-Trumpers, never-Trumpers that were absolutely the perpetuators of the violence.
It's hard to even get through an article. It really is. It's hard to even read through a single article because you started, and the bias is so thick and so heavy and so just over the top, and it's like, good Lord, you have to pause and just take a breath and be like, I can't even get through an entire sentence without having to read it and then restructure and try to pull the truth from it or what they're telling me because it's so heavily biased.
Or then you have to go look somewhere else to actually find the truth because the bias is so bad in that article that you're just like, there's no way.
Yeah. And surprise, it's usually not what they're saying.
No.
And yeah, that's when it's bad, when you have to fact check the media.
Or just blatantly ignoring it like they did with the whole Hunter Biden thing. And then CNN, last week finally does a little bit of a dalliance of an investigation into it or a report on it. It's just
minimized to the whole thing, like every ounce of that will be explained or wished away, or it'll just be nonsense after nonsense, and somehow it'll end up being Trump's fault. You watch, somehow this will end up being Trump's fault. That, well, yeah, he did it, but Trump, and so and somehow that'll fly. They should have just called Allen's Record Service. Pull that whole story right out of the ditch, get them going.
578-6300, the only number you need. And we went up to Houston yesterday and saw a few cars in the ditch. The police were there, the state troopers, I should say, HR's brethren were there, and sisters were on the scene. No tow trucks yet, but between here and El Campo, I bet you if they didn't call Allen's, they might still be trying to get them out of there.
Medians have done for business on Navarro. I bet they're doing well now. Good Lord, I bet we need them.
My wife says they need to extend them all the way to Yoakum because the idiots have just moved further north, and now do their dumb driving moves where there are no medians.
It's special out there. That's all I'll say.
It's this time of year. I avoid it. But if you can't avoid a situation where you need a Allen's Wrecker Service, the only one we call 361-578-6300. VCS, Rocket Oil Field Services, and the only locally owned and authorized AT&T retailer, taking appointments at the AT&T retailer to make sure that you are shopping safely this holiday season and your health is maintained. So they're taking appointments, but they can still satisfy and take care of every need that you may have, from Christmas shopping, stocking stuffers, to a device that isn't working and you need a new one. Go right ahead.
Radios, comms, all that. They got you. They're still helping me out. They're doing a great job.
There you go. They're helping you with stuff, and you understand it. And you get into things. I mean, you're asking.
Yeah,
probably something that's not of the norm. Used to be the norm. Radio communication systems and things like that. I mean, those used to be in every truck of a service company around, and now everybody just has a cell phone. But they still have other forms of technology that are reliable and necessary when cell service is non-existent in parts of the world.
Absolutely. And we're bringing militias back. You got to have comms but all joking aside, with all the weather stuff and everything that we have going on, it's nice to have some backups to your cell phone and have other ways to reach your significant others that are reliable and there and always available to you. And VCS can just really listen to what you have going and set that all up and make it happen for you.
Stop by and see them right there on Kerr Boulevard. Chesney Furniture Company. They've been in Victoria for 100 years, folks. They've been providing great quality furniture at fabulous prices with down-home customer service for all of that time. 100 years. They've been in their current location at 116 West One Lynn for 70 years. They're not messing around. And to prove how serious they are and how glad they are to have been around for 100 years, 50% off all furniture. They've got great pieces. If dad needs a new recliner, heck, mom might want a new recliner. Grandma might want a new recliner. Get down there. They've got the best brand recliner. They're made in the USA.
50% off.
50% off. So you really and they'll deliver. They can deliver today if you want it. They can deliver in time for Christmas.
You're running out of excuses.
You really are. And
days before Christmas, you better move.
And Veracruz was closed yesterday. They were open on Saturday for shoppers, but they're back open again today, right there on Navarro. 576-6015 if you want to call ahead and place an order. As the week gets busier, as the weeks and days get busier in the lead up to Christmas, nothing better than calling ahead to Veracruz, grabbing something to go, taking it home. And
you know what Navarro's about to start looking like.
Yeah, you might as well.
Before you're all ticked off and all mad, just call that food in, pick it up, have it delivered, whatever. But yeah, it's there. Save yourself the frustration.
Scott Snow, good morning. David Glass, Karen Webb is in, Lisa Poole, Amanda King. CW Bean says President Trump never stopped this New World Order. Now it's coming in like a freight train. Richard King says, I'm with you, Caleb. Kelly Frommey says, if nothing else, maybe this whole mess will motivate people to actually get involved. Grassroots political work does make a difference. Bobcat Wiley says, a friend of mine was in D.C. Without the help of the Proud Boys, a group wouldn't have made it back to their hotel. There you go.
Yeah, it shows you what's there also, and they said it was spooky and pretty scary.
James Kurth answer a reply to be, we'll just let James and BJ have their conversation on the side.
Yeah, they don't need us. They do not need us to keep them going. They got this.
But an interesting article out of Australia, and maybe there's been a lot of bad blood lately between Australia and China. And Australian media release a list of almost 2 million. Put that in perspective, folks. 2 million Chinese spies who have infiltrated government positions. Probably every Fortune 500 company that you can find. Certainly every Fortune 100.
It didn't say, but military, I'm sure. And
well, I mean, when you're a Chinese spy, you're part of the military. You're part of the communist Chinese.
I mean, in our military.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure. And some of the names, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, but 2 million spies working around the world on behalf of the Chinese government. This comes on the back end of last week's news that the Canadian government was training Chinese military in Canada on cold weather warfare, including 1- and 2-star generals in on these exercises.
18 of them or something like
17 total that they actually managed to do. The 18th was canceled, and all Prime Minister Trudeau could do at the time was try to figure out how to save face with the Chinese when he had to cancel it.
That's scary, scary, scary. People, everybody's all off on this Russia crap and worrying about all this other stuff, and they have no idea how close China is to eating our lunch. I just watched a little bit of a background show last night when we were making dinner, and it was about China and all the technology that they've stolen from us, from our fighter aircraft to jets and our boats and ships and all of this. And they were just showing some of our technology and how almost immediately it was pulled up, and it was all of a sudden the same technology was coming out of China. And they said, these aren't technology breakthroughs that people have. Those things take years and years. And basically this is all theft of our intellectual property and stuff. And
all they've done is reverse engineer anything they can get their hands on and slap a Chinese brand on it. And I mean, and they don't even try to hide it.
They don't have to.
They have knockoff brands of Mercedes-Benz that look just like the Mercedes they copied.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
the electronics, the GoPros, all that. That's what they were showing, is their whole line of GoPros, but they were Chinese made, and pretty soon I don't think are good. Anyway, it's China's scary, and that whole deal. Yeah, I mean and I don't think that's going to be an onion that we pull, and I think that will go. I think that economist that was out there from China talking last week about how deep it goes to the White House, that guy I think will end up being spot on with what he's saying, and that's scary.
And the tip of the iceberg is, if you don't think that Joe Biden is beholden to the Chinese Communist Party and the $1.5 billion that they gave Hunter Biden's brand new startup capital firm with nothing but a Biden name and a Heinz name behind it.
Yeah. And this is where I just get confused, because I feel like if, say, you or I were trying to do this at a scale 1/10 of this degree, we were trying to, let's say you were trying to take it from the college, or whatever. I feel like our wonderful DA down here on Constance would be able to crack the case, and between her and law enforcement, they would hem us up, and we'd be sitting down in a jail cell. I do not understand how these people at the highest, it's almost like the actual ones that implement the rules are not beholden to them. And I don't get, our background checks, I feel like at the lowest levels would have caught some of this.
Yeah.
And yet how do these people still have security clearances? And
it probably went back further than this, but for me, the tipping point or the sort of the point that brought it home for me that these people are untouchable was when the Clintons were leaving the White House.
And they took all the W's
well, that was funny. That was funny. But they took all of the China,
mm-hmm.
right? And we just said, well, we'll just let them keep it. I mean, at that point, you knew that there was really nothing that anybody who doesn't ruffle feathers in Washington, D.C. can do that they won't be punished for. Blake Farenthold gets kicked out of office because he had a toxic office environment. And he used a fund that Congress set up for themselves to pay off legal expenses and got roasted for it. This is just an example, but because he was an outsider, not really one of the inside people
mm-hmm.
in Washington, D.C., his actions get exposed and he's out of office.
Yep. It's that snapback politics that I read that title the other day, where it's become hip to snap back at people, and it's all, the Clintons felt wronged on the way out, so they can do those things, and it's acceptable because they're just righting a wrong, and they're showing people that, you know, they're not going to go softly. And now that behavior is endorsed and celebrated, and you know, and now it's cool to, you know, look at like when the Trumps won and they were going in and she had that present that she handed to Mrs. Obama and all that, and how bad she was, you know, the president's wife was mocked for taking that present and now everybody just made fun of her from the very, and to me that just sets a tone that, you know, from the day they walked in and no, we're not going to come back together because here you are bringing gifts and you're mocked relentlessly and everybody makes fun of you and how stupid
and they make fun of your
right?
accent. I mean, the people who are the most woke
making fun of a lady that speaks like 10 languages or something,
and at least 5, I think, right?
You know,
yeah,
but she's got that accent, so let's just lay into her. And that's why I just don't think, you know, all this love and love Trumps and all this. Well, where is it? You know, it's not. It's every day how stupid everybody is, and I'm not feeling very loved. Ash.
And this show is probably going to be a little more upbeat for a Monday. I mean, the Cowboys won.
Did they?
Yeah.
Cowboys won. What's that put them on for the season now?
I think 4-9. I don't know. It's not pretty, but and then when I saw this story out of Australia broke, so and here's the thing, and it gets you wondering again. How does a story like this, where this sort of information has been exposed and usually broken by U.S. news sources, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's think about it. The whole WikiLeaks was dumped into U.S. media. He didn't pick a source in England. He didn't pick a source in Australia. But now these things are not, because I think it's a sign that the media in this country can't be trusted.
Yeah, absolutely.
To break these stories or even run with them. Remember, Fox News had a Chinese whistleblower on talking about how they covered up the virus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what? 2 weeks ago, huge story about how China covered up the virus or tried to cover up the virus.
But instead, most of that was censored and pulled and you know,
labeled as fake news by the fact checkers.
And I was going to say, on top of everything else you speak of, you know, the just complete ignoring of all of this and all that. But then what does get through is just labeled erroneous or false. And I mean, there's just no resemblance of truth out there.
None.
And you know, and I would venture to say most people like you and I, and a lot of your audience don't want to have to spend the insane amount of time it takes to research even the smallest of stories for accuracy. So they just move on, and then that's what's taken over. I mean, look at Crossroads, their TV station. You know, their headlines, everything that they use these CNN headlines, because it gets them the clickbait articles that they need to get 125 comments on their little. They don't really care what the article says, but they throw out that CNN headline to their little conservative city, and it gets them 125 comments, every one of them negative about how stupid they are and don't listen to their community, but they got 125 comments, and so they're moving on. Versus their pro community one had 3, you know, and I think that's the deal. Is if you go that way, it's eaten up, and if you go the other way, it's not. And so I don't know.
Clayton Meyer, good morning. Lee Gray says, watch Newsmax. I'm almost to the point, and a lot of people that or OAN, I'm almost to the point where I won't anymore. And I'll look at who's being interviewed and quoted in stories, and then I'll go do a little background checking on them to see what their credentials are. And it takes more time, but I've almost become so distrustful of the media now. And you know, I mean,
no, I start at the far left and I watch, you know, almost exclusively MSNBC, CNN, and stuff, because I know my heart and I know my feelings and I know where I stand, and I don't seek affirmation, but I do want truth. And if there's something, and I know I just said I watch MSNBC and all that, but in the same breath, you know, I want my thoughts and ideas to be vetted and to make sure they're founded in truth. And while I sit there most of the time, I'm scratching my head saying, what are they saying? You know, I also know what's coming because they'll tell you. You know, they told us 2 months before the election. I mean, Hillary went on that interview and said, this is what's going to happen. It's going to look like Trump won that night, but then overnight, as the mail-in votes fell, he's going to lose. He's going to lose big. I mean, she called it down to the letter 2 months before the election or a month before, whatever that article was, you know.
Well, and I think we played a clip a couple of weeks ago, Joe Biden talking about how if he ever has a moral dilemma,
he'll step down
with Kamala Harris, he'll step down.
Yeah.
And the media just didn't do anything with it.
No. Well, because they know, they don't want truth in there. They don't want light in their darkness.
Michelle Hawkins says we will never know truth again if Biden gets in. Jim Hartman, good morning to you.
Mr. Hartman.
But kind of wrap it up before the break. But this story with 2 million Chinese spies infiltrating government and country and companies and corporations we all do business with, and the Bidens, you can't tell me they're not involved. Mm-hmm. With $1.5 billion given to Hunter, you can't tell me that Joe Biden is not going to be a slave to the Chinese Communist Party. And I'm not talking the people here. I'm talking the Chinese Communist Party, who runs concentration camps against anybody that speaks out, anybody who doesn't believe the way they believe. They just disappear people constantly. Doctors who spoke out against the virus or to try to warn the world that this virus was coming.
Yeah, but
he died of the virus. Yeah, whatever.
My words, though, that today what we heard, that this was pretty much the extent of it. I mean, after today, after tomorrow, with the exception of a few people like yourself and national conservative media, et cetera, that story's gone and it'll be buried. And that's you're not going to hear that, because you're right. It does tie back to Biden. All this grossness goes back together, and they're all holding hands, and it's all this. So I'm just not the biggest fan of government, because it's gross, and we all suffer. They'll retire after their 4 years, go to their mansions, go to this, and we, the taxpayers, will bear the burden for this for years to come. Our children will, and it's sad.
Just wait, because on the other side of this break, I'll give you a preview of what's coming with a Biden-Harris administration, and you're not going to like it. And I don't. But
I think I had to cut out after this break. That's the end of my show. I don't even want to hear what's coming. It's Monday. It's cold outside.
Cowboys won. Should have been a positive.
There we go. All right, we'll go with it.
Weekend. Yeah.
Oh yeah, forgive me.
No, I'm just saying it should have been a positive.
No, but I should have told you that. You look stellar, right? But I should have told you here. I hope I look as good as you when I get there, my friend. You look
That's
good.
a backhanded compliment, but I'll take it.
Yeah, but I'm coming. It's sadly we're getting there all too quickly.
That's Atzenhofer, Atzenhofer.com. Atzenhofer's been around since 1926. I've got a ways to go to catch up to Atzenhofer and Chesnick, but
it's about time to go get you a Buick now, or not just yet.
Not just yet.
Maybe, okay?
A nice Cadillac, maybe. I would take one of those. One that has like 800 horsepower.
Those things are bad now. Yes,
seconds.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That ain't your grandpa's Cadillac anymore. Atzenhofer has Chevrolet, Cadillac, Mitsubishi, Mazda. So basically, any car that I should be wanting now that I'm in my midlife crisis age, Atzenhofer can deliver. Clayton Myers is a Lincoln Town car.
Get it.
I'm not 80 yet, Clayton. It's coming though.
Things are like missiles out on the road. You got to dodge them all day. Like, get up early to go make everybody else late.
They've got those 4 brand new vehicles to choose from, and all the different models under those brands. They've got great selection of pre-owned. I actually did see a Cadillac that was in the pre-owned lot.
Hey, I joke, man. I joke, but all day.
Yeah,
I think they're nice.
Yeah. And if you don't want to get out in the cold weather today, or you've got COVID health concerns, Atzenhofer.com can help you shop. You can do everything basically online, and then when you they'll tell you stop on by, sign the papers, and boom, done.
Yeah, make it easy.
Make it very easy. White Trash Services makes it very easy as well. Give them a call, 550-1826.
They're awesome. They've been helping me out a lot, and they work with you. And if they can't, they got ways to work with you. They're awesome. And what I appreciate is the effort made. Like I said, if me, I'm always going to call in some weird request. Hey, I got this idea and what have you. And she doesn't bat an eye. She's like, wait a minute, you say idea? Let me get a notepad. Let's do this.
And that's the great thing about BJ is and right now, if you want to prepay for somebody for weekly dumpster service, they'll put a bow on it, deliver it. There it is for Christmas. And that's a great gift. You take you take 3 or 6 months out of, somebody's bills. They can use that money for somewhere else. They can put it into savings. It's a nice present that keeps on giving. And every time that white trash truck comes and, lifts that dumpster up, they're going to go, man, I really appreciate
enthusiasm.
That. But they can solve. They will work with you. If you've got whatever
you got a hoard
it is
in your garage that you need to clean out and you haven't gotten to things and if there's a need and they're going to try to find the way to solve it for
and they've got roll-offs of all sizes, so they're not going to sell you something that's bigger than what you need for your capacity, but they're not going to sell you something that's too small and you're not going to be able to get rid of all the junk that you have.
They've customized a few things for me already and it's been spectacular, and I'm getting close to having to call them again.
550-1826 the number to call, but I'm sure you've got it on speed dial now. Razor IT Solutions, John Paul Hall. Give JP a call.
JP's the man too.
He is. He's good at what he does. He understands the analytics. He understands the data. He understands the encryption of it.
I already called him for my next venture that I got going. I said, hey, just from the ground up, I know my own weaknesses. Help me out. And he listened to me and he's like, you say when you're ready and we'll jump. And so he's got him waiting in the wings to kick some butt for me.
There you go. And he can make it so that even if you don't know what he's talking about, he'll make it and break it down so it's understandable.
Yeah, he didn't make me feel dumb. I was like, hey, I got this wild idea. And he listened to me and I hung up and I was like, he didn't think I'm stupid. So he's a great actor.
Yeah. Very good guy and good friend of the show.
Yep, good dude.
Uncle Mutt's. Stop by today. They'll open around 11. They'll be open till late tonight. Dine in, drive through, brisket, ribs, sausage, chicken, turkey. They've got it all the sides. I mean, you can eat there every day, probably for the rest of your life, and never have the exact same meal twice. It's phenomenal.
And delicious.
Can't wait to get my taste back.
Yeah,
everything just tastes the same right now. I mean, we're going on 4 weeks with this.
Do you adjust to that? I mean, or is it just everything tastes like you're eating shoe leather? I mean,
this is like drinking hot water.
Wow. I mean, just nothing, huh?
Nothing.
Wow.
Every once in a while, a smell of something will kind of hit me for a second, and then it's gone. And like yesterday,
that's everybody like crop dusting you now because they think you can't smell it.
Everybody just
blaming you now.
Dog can blow up the room, and my wife's like, putting the gas mask on. I got nothing.
Oh, that's terrible.
Nothing.
Or a blessing. That could go one of two ways.
Well, that's a blessing. But
so let me ask you this:
we had one of my favorite meals for my birthday meal. Good taste.
What is it? What's your favorite?
Shafliki. It's a Slovak dish my grandma used to make. It's not going to sound.
Just
it's simple.
Confused me.
Yeah, well, I figured it would. Basically, it's homemade egg noodles, but we found a good substitute at HEB, so we don't have to get out the rolling pin and make the noodles. You stew chopped cabbage with a little bit of sugar till it's soft and really cooked down.
Is it a dessert or is that a meal?
No, it's just a meal.
It's a meal?
It's rich and heavy. And then so you throw the cabbage in the noodles, mix it all together, and then you douse it in ample amounts of browned butter.
I'd like to try that food one day, like at your house, but I would like it on a day when there's other stuff, like just in case, you know what I mean? Like just in case I tried it, I'm like, well, I tried it and it was not for me, but if there was nothing.
And it's not for everybody. My dad doesn't like it, but he, but he's not a big pasta or noodle guy. But he likes cabbage, but he won't eat that.
It all just sits so heavy.
It is heavy. It really is, but it's so good.
So
but we have sisters-in-law that don't like it, but it's an acquired taste. Thankfully, my wife.
One of these days. I've got a question now because I like to ask everybody that's dealt with the COVID. Now that you're on the backside of this, you still don't have your taste back and all of that. Has it changed your perspective as far as mandates, as far as closing of businesses, as yes, and now that I've had it, all these businesses should be shut down, or Matt, you should, because almost everybody that I've talked to, not to ask you a question and not give you a chance to answer, but almost everybody I've talked to has been like, no, I still don't think that, what have you. So I'm curious your thoughts now that you're on the backside of it.
I'm going to join that same group and say no. And I know people that have been severely impacted. Charlie Pride just passed away from complications of it. He's been battling it for a few weeks at 86 years old, and thankfully got a chance to see him last November at Schrader Hall. But it hasn't. I'm mindful of others. I have adjusted the way I live. I don't do nearly the things that I used to do and go out and all that, but it hasn't changed my thoughts on it. From day one, I believe it's a virus, and it's going to do virusy things that only viruses will do. And there's very little that we can do to stop what's going to happen. And you look at places that I look at the data. We've got states that have forced mask mandates and locked things down and been very restrictive. And those states are still facing the same things we're facing in Texas with more cases. And so, I mean, but the only ones vilified are the Texas and the South Dakotas of the world. And those ones somehow get glossed over. California, well, they did all the right things. California did great. They're still facing a huge surge, and they've never let up the restrictions. So,
yeah,
again, to me, it's a virus that's going to do things that viruses do. And
well, I never understood because I agree. That's exactly like I think we're arrogant to think that we are going to stop this virus that made its way around the earth in a matter of days. I think it's arrogant to think that we're going to stop it. And so
Peter McNally says, listen to the scientists. The thing is, the scientists don't agree on everything either, Peter.
Which week, and I don't mean that like as a smart aleck, but it's the data seems to constantly be changing, and depending on which source you're hearing it from, and all of this, it's because I'm not opposed to the scientists, but I mean, wear your mask, don't wear your mask, do this, don't do that.
I know people that have listened to some scientists, but not the scientists that the media wants you to listen to. They've been on hydroxychloroquine forever.
Right.
Nothing. They're good. Nothing. They've been, then last week, this should have been all over the place. This was a Senate testimony for ivermectin, which is an antiparasitic, used mostly in animals, but is used in humans, especially in countries, mostly third world countries that have a large problem with tapeworms and other intestinal parasites, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've done a bunch of studies. They've been published. They even admitted these haven't been peer reviewed yet, but our data shows this. And it's highly effective, not only prophylactically, but also to be used when people are onset with COVID. And they've even used it for people who've been hospitalized. And the gentleman I listened to said through all their studies and all their treatments, not one person who was in the hospital that got the treatment ended up dying.
Yeah,
it's pretty solid. And somehow I know what's going to happen with this. It's going to end up getting debunked.
Well, and that's what I'm confused about, is because the whole, lockdowns we were told was to keep our medical facilities from being overrun and all of this. Well, we won World War II because the Americans outproduced the rest of the world, and we were putting out battleships and when things got hard, our country locked down, we went to work and we outproduced and that's how we worked, or how we won. And what I don't get is, why if this sickness is going to go through the country, why break the country at the same time? Where, why not put our American ingenuity into, okay, well, we can't stop this virus. Maybe we can slow it down a little bit, but we can't stop it. Well, why don't we put it into, if we need a new wing of the hospital, or we need a new, you cannot tell me that the American people cannot rise to that occasion to fit hospital beds, to fit. I mean, yes, we'll have an initial lull while we react, but I still believe in the American people that if there's, look how many masks look at how we responded, but that's still not good enough. Now you got to stay inside. And it's hard to feel like it's about anything other than control at that point. Because
and they'll give you the excuse, well, you can't train an ICU nurse overnight. I get that. But
still got pipeline.
They can still be trained, and they can certainly be mentored, and they can be working alongside to get you to that point. Nobody trained soldiers in World War. I mean, the training in World War II was quick.
Yep.
And we got them as ready as possible. That's
because victory was the goal, and I don't think victory is the goal here, and that's I think that this like this vaccine going out today, relatively speaking, I mean that's a great thing that's to be commended that the fastest vaccine in history, I think,
and let's not, but I want to be clear. They've been working on a coronavirus vaccine for a long time. It's not like this just popped up.
Strand,
but this one is the one that, so they have the knowledge and some technology. The only thing that scares me about this one is the first mRNA, messenger RNA vaccine that's really been produced, right? It's been, in theory, it's great.
Mm-hmm. I don't even buy the first cell phone that comes out or the first Xbox that comes out. I let them, do the update or two and figure it out. And I'm not knocking the scientist. I'm not, but there sure seems to be a lot of money to be made in all of this as well. And it's hard for me to look past the destruction that we've self-imposed. Because if you recall, back in the very beginning of all this, before I think we even had the first COVID death, before any of this, and I'd have to go back and check the exact timeline, but I think our politicians rushed in and shut everything down, and they broke the economy before anything happened, and then they passed the biggest spending bill in history, all before anything had ever even happened or kicked off, and that's when I was like, this doesn't feel right, and then here we are 8 months later, 9 months later, the goalpost continues to be moved, and I don't think it will ever stop being moved, and I think we're in trouble. I really, really do, because pretty soon we're not going to be able to go anywhere, do anything. No, it's not mandatory, but if you want to buy groceries or get on a plane or go do anything, then you have to get it. And that's scary to me. Rant over.
That's where we're heading.
Yep. Rant over.
Went Services, Went Electrical for all your electrical service needs. Went is the one to call. From adding new outlets, you've got an older home, you're tired of running 80 feet of telephone charging cable to get to your favorite chair that you bought at Chesnick's,
Yes,
where you like the lounge.
82 extension plugs plug into that one outlet.
Yeah, something as simple as that to solar power to backup generators. Went can provide it all, so give them a call. The Gray Barn for all your event design needs. Cheryl's the one to call, 920-6803, from birthday parties to weddings,
Christmas parties,
showers, whether it's baby, whether it's bridal, couple showers, they can do all. Cheryl can do all that stuff. But it's not
Yeah.
they. There's no they in the Great Barn.
Hey, have you
It's
started helping now?
Yeah, I'm kind of restricted on what I can no longer carry flowers.
I was gonna say, yeah, after the last debacle of carrying stuff, you're
But I
probably
can-
on limited duty.
I can carry the heavy stuff. But flowers and delicate
Your
things.
wife for letting her
Nope.
handle it anyway.
Yeah. USA Concrete Coatings, 578 Home for all your concrete coating needs, from sidewalks to patios to commercial, residential flooring. They can cover it all.